Hi everyone. I wanted to start this video to talk about a movie that many critics and other reviewers alike have criticized over the years, and at the time of this recording is celebrating its 30th anniversary. Now, let me take you back to the 90s, in somewhere in 1996, 1997. I was just starting to watch cartoons and movies. My first movie was Hercules, but the first superhero movie that I think I saw, not on theaters but on television, was Batman. But I know what you're thinking. Which one? The 1989 Batman or the Batman Returns film? Well, it turns out that it was actually Batman Forever, which was directed by Joel Schumacher. Now, over the years, it has gone to gain a reputation to be a bad film. That it's okay at best, but it was forgettable in terms of story and characters, or it wasn't as good as the previous ones, or it was downright horrible. And it was a clear side of what was to come on Batman and Robin. That people thought that there were planted seeds of what Batman and Robin was going to be. And in those years that have gone by, after watching this film as a kid, a teenager, and now as an adult, I know one thing that I knew a long time ago. This was actually a very underrated Batman film. And many people will argue, well, obviously, but others would say, why? I mean, it's not as good as the Michael Keaton version. So why is this film as good, or at the very least, underrated for you, or considered to be one of my favorites? Well, that's what I'm here to do. So I hope you guys are comfortable, or if you're listening, I hope you enjoyed this video. My name is Enrique Cardona. I'm your reviewer, and celebrating the 30th anniversary of this film, I'm here to review Batman Forever. Now, it's important that before I talk about the movie as a whole, I should talk about the production behind the scenes during the production of this film, which it's important to know in order to understand the context of why people don't like Batman Forever as much as the others. Well, here's the thing. Remember that the first few films that were about Batman were directed by Tim Burton and starring Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. Those movies are considered to be fan favorites for a lot of people, Batman and Batman Returns in particular. However, over the years, or at the very least, over the course of the time and the production in Warner Brothers to produce a third Batman film, the second installment, which was Batman Returns, was considered by many one of the oddest and the most dark of the bunch because it had a lot of dark scenes and tones. It had psychopaths. It was basically not the kind of movie that a lot of people want to see, especially for kids. Because at the time, McDonald's was advertising Batman Return toys, and it was basically after discovering what kind of movie that they just had, uh, came to the conclusion that yeah, this is not exactly something that people want to see for their kids. So Tim Burton was booted out of the director's chair, and after a lot of long renegotiations with Michael Keaton, the actor decided to bow out, and they decided to have a new director and a new tone and a new actor as Batman in Joel Schumacher and Val Kilmer. So that's why we got the movie of today. There were also rumors that Robin Williams was supposed to be the Riddler, Billy D. Williams returning as Harvey Dent, aka Two Face. There were also rumors that Marlon Wayans was going to be Robin in Batman Returns. Selina Kyle, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, was returning, but nothing of that substance. And thus the movie became very, very different. And that's what we got today. And like I said, while this movie is not perfect, it is, in my opinion, one of my favorite Batman films because it allowed me to understand the character, and comparing it to, let's say, Batman Returns is a lot better than you think. And I'm going to try to explain why, my reasons, explain the plot, the characters, and the production, and what happens afterwards. So I hope you guys can enjoy and take a sit back and enjoy. So I'm going to start this film with the plot. The focus on the film is to see Batman having a dual problem with his life as Bruce Wayne and Batman. Matters are made worse when Two-Face rises to the surface and tries to find ways to kill Batman without any success. At the same time, Bruce Wayne rejects an idea from one of his company workers called Edward Nigma, aka the Riddler, in which the Riddler decides to take revenge on Bruce Wayne and decides to create a machine that can not only absorb people's mindsets but also their thoughts and wishes. And that's something that puts him into an alliance with Two Face, as they both plan to not only take down Bruce Wayne but also Batman. Along the way, we see that Dick Grayson, who was an acrobat, loses his family due to a tragedy caused by Two Face, and thus he comes to live with Bruce Wayne at his mansion, discovering that he is Batman. And at the same time, we see that Dr. Chase Meridian, played by Nicole Kidman, is infatuated with Batman, wants to basically date him or kiss him or whatever. And throughout the film, we see her be obsessed with Batman, but also develop a relationship and a romance with Bruce Wayne, not knowing that they are both in the same. And thus, now Batman has to figure out how to stop Two-Face and the Riddler, while also figuring out things about himself. And that's the plot of the film. And here's the thing. Why do I think that this movie is better than Batman Returns? Well, the thing is, if you look back to Batman Returns, what exactly do we learn about Bruce Wayne in that film? I mean, what do we know of? And I feel like a lot of people that watch Batman Returns and give him praise normally overlook the aspects that don't work. Like, why is Bruce being Batman? Why is he still trying to be Batman or trying to develop a relationship with a person? What do we know about Bruce Wayne? I mean, I don't know very much about Michael Keaton's version of Bruce Wayne, and that's something that the movie doesn't focus on. The plot of Batman Forever does focus on Bruce Wayne, why he is becoming Batman, what happens when he makes his decisions, like, I don't know, kill people. Now, it all depends if you tolerate the fact that Batman kills people in this universe as well as in the Tim Burton version, because he does that. Although I should probably say that there's a little bit about Batman killing in the Burton films that I found interesting, but I'm gonna get to whenever I review Batman and Batman Returns. But needless to say, yeah, I believe that this film focuses more on Batman and Bruce Wayne. How Bruce becoming Batman basically led to decisions and consequences with both lives. How he can love as Bruce Wayne. How he can be a father to basically a young teenager who tries to get revenge and has the same mindsets as he did when he started. How does he stop two villains that are basically going out for him and might possibly discover his secret identity? That's something that raises attention and, in my opinion, puts the focus where it is. And in my opinion, that's what the plot is. Now, obviously, it goes all over the place with the Two Face and Riddler subplots, with Dick Grayson, obviously, and the romance with Chase Meridian. But as part of what I like it is balancing a lot of things that not many people could see as balance. So yeah, in my opinion, this has a better plot than Batman Returns. Whether you agree with me or not, I'm not expecting people to agree with me on this, but it's important to mention that while Batman Returns has the subplot of, Bruce Wayne trying to have a romance with Selena Kyle, what do we know? What was his end goal to stop the Penguin and Max Shrek? I mean, we know he tries to save the city of Gotham, but what else do we know? How does that affect him? How is his mindset about taking down villains or killing goons affect his mental psyche? We don't know very much, and I think Batman Forever does reflect that, and they reflect the mindset of Bruce Wayne and if he believes that Batman is a choice or just something that he has to do, that is obligated to do. Now let's talk about cast and characters. Now there are a lot of people in this film, in particular cameos by a young Drew Barrymore alongside Debbie Mazar as Sugar and Spice, Two Faces angels, or at the very least assistants, basically. Drew Barrymore plays Sugar, which is a nice one, and Debbie Mazar as Spice, the bad assistant. That's the. It's funny to see Drew Barrymore in a very small role, but hey, that's what he does. Other notable mentions are Michael Goth and Pat Hingle as Alfred Pennyworth and James Gordon. Now, these two actors, we saw them in the previous films, in the Tim Burton versions, when we see them being like the anchors of reality for either Bruce Wayne or Batman. In this case, Alfred Pennyworth is basically the surrogate father that Bruce needed after he lost his parents. And Pat Hingle as James Gordon, we see him still the commissioner, and he doesn't do much as we saw in other versions of Jim Gordon, but it was good to see, and he provides a level of surrogateness that we need in this film. That it's the voice of reason for a lot of people, or at the very least, he's the anchor of reality and honesty that we need in a city like Gotham, which is a cesspool of criminals and corruption. So yeah, on that particular matter, I appreciate those two that have returned for this franchise. Now let's talk about cast and characters, in particular with the villains. In this case, let's talk about first Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face, played by Tommy Lee Jones. I'm not gonna lie, this is a much different performance of Harvey Dent, Two-Face, or even Tommy Lee Jones for that matter. Two-Face in the comics and in cartoons is always being portrayed as someone who is unstable, not just a villain, full-on criminal, but a guy who has a moral of justice very, very complex, or at the very least, very uh, divided, because he believes that random toss, or at the very least, the coin of a flip, is the only justice in this world. That randomness, that chance, is the only thing that maintains balance of good and evil. And Two Face, for that matter, always struggles between the line of good and evil. Most of the time, he's portrayed as a villain, but I always believed that Harvey Dent was beyond good and evil, that it was at the very least beyond just being a criminal. And in this portrayal, he's a full-on 60s villain. The kind of time, the kind of type of Adam West version of Batman that always acts all goofy, all maniacal, or menacing, all hilarious. That kind of guy, which is odd to see in Tommy Lee Jones, but I think it's a reason why. You see, Tommy Lee Jones working alongside Jim Carrey basically wasn't exactly the best circumstances, and according to Jim Carrey on a radio show, he said in his words that the blood drained from his face and said, I hate you. I really don't like you. I despise you. I cannot sanction you buffoonery. Which comes to show the kind of performance that Tommy Lee Jones was performing in this flick, and it goes to show that he wanted to outperform Jim Carrey, that Tommy Lee Jones was trying to be the main villain because, after all, he's the one that technically we started in this universe. I mean, obviously, the original actor of Harvey Dent was Billy D. Williams, but of course, they didn't want to bring back Billy D. Williams and recast him with Tommy Lee Jones. But still, this is a villain that most people can argue is a lot more popular in Batman's Rogues Gallery than, say, the Riddler. But in any case, Tommy Lee Jones, at the very least, brings a level of corniness to this character that we haven't seen before, but oftentimes can be a little bit menacing when he is not trying to be, very goofy or very over the top. Because that distinction goes to Jim Carrey as he plays Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler. Now, remember this. During the 90s, Jim Carrey was exploding in popularity with films like Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and Liar Liar. This guy was going all over the place. He was famous everywhere. And so when he was cast as the Riddler, he basically turned his silliness to 100 levels because it was basically trying to be, the 60s version of the Riddler, which is not surprising because that's the kind of characters that Jim Carrey likes to perform. Over the top, goofy people that like to do a lot of mischievous things. And that's no different with the Riddler. Although in this case, the Riddler is the villain here. So it's funny to see Jim Carrey in a villainous role. So, yeah. In this story, Edward Nygma is a fan of Bruce Wayne and has an invention that wants to show it to him, thinking that it could change the world. But Bruce Wayne rejects that because he doesn't like tampering mind and thoughts with people. Thus, it makes Edward Nygma angry and obsessed with destroying Bruce Wayne, and thus creates the box in order to not only absorb people's minds and thoughts, but also to use it to figure out secrets and basically make a commentary about how television can rot your brain. I don't know. It's kind of the commentary that I think Joel Schumacher was trying to come across in this film. But yeah, it inspires him to become the Riddler and joining forces with Two-Face in order to stop Batman and kill him. And yeah, this is basically Jim Carrey. I'm not gonna lie, it's entertaining despite the fact that this is supposed to be a villainous role that he should be taken seriously. But then again, the Riddler has never been taken seriously back then and now. Like I mentioned in the Batman review, in that story they wanted to make the Riddler more psychopathic and more, mysterious with his riddles. In here, the riddles are more just to play the mind games with Bruce Wayne and trying to make him figure out who he was and that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's basically a silly performance that Jim Carrey can only perform. And yeah, I actually enjoy that. I believe it's funny at the very least, although very perverted in some places. Like joygasm people, like wow. But now let's talk about three of their heroes. In this case, let's start with the most simple one, Chase Meridian, played by Nicole Kidman. Now, interesting fact about Chase Meridian. When the movie was in pre-production, the plans of continuing Batman with Tim Burton and Michael Keaton had Rene Russo playing Chase Meridian in the next film. But after Schumacher and Val Kilmer became part of the film, they decided to recast Chase Meridian with Nicole Kidman in order to make the character more, well, let's say, appealing to the general audience, or at the very least, sexy for our main character to chase after. So yeah, there's one thing that I find odd in this film. It's Chase Meridian. It's not like she's a horrible character or that she does unspeakable things or that she's boring as hell. Because, Nicole Kidman is a great actress and provides a lot of levity to this character. It's just that when you break it down, you realize that her only obsession or her only goal in the film is to be with Batman, to basically date the guy. I don't know why she basically wears lingerie. Basically, it talks about, oh, I want to peel on your psyche or something. I don't know, something like that. She's just obsessed with Batman, but at the same time, she falls in love with Bruce Wayne, something that Bruce himself didn't thought it would come across because In many respects, it goes back to Batman's psychology that he's more Batman than he is Bruce Wayne, or that is the other way around. But in those cases, we see that Chase Meridian is realizing how much Bruce Wayne and Batman are the same, which in many respects they kind of address that in the film. I never noticed it because I thought, well, she doesn't know by the end, but it actually does. I After watching it years later, I realized that yeah, Chase knew about Bruce, but unfortunately, she doesn't bring that much to the table, and thus we don't see her ever again. Yeah, after Batman Forever, she was never seen again, and then, well, the love interest was basically null, practically inexistent. But like I said, I don't blame Nicole Kidman for the performance. I blame the writing because they don't give her too much about herself, why is she obsessed with Batman, or at least not that I know of, because I watched this film and the only thing that I know of is that she's just in love with Batman. So that's pretty much it. But hey, at the very least, Nicole Kidman was very good at her performance, and I could see her being Catwoman in another in another film, in another sequel. It's just a shame that we never got to see her. I don't know. Maybe it was a deliberate choice on behalf of the director, but who knows? It's just not the strongest part for me. Now let's talk about Chris O'Donnell as Dick Grayson, aka Robin. Now, a lot of people who talk about Chris O'Donnell as Robin, they always say that he's always whiny, that he's too adult to be a teenager, and all of that. And I'm not gonna lie, in this film, as well as in in Batman and Robin, he's always being portrayed as a pretty boy, unfazed by danger, that he's always an acrobat, agile, that he only complains when he's upset with Batman, all that stuff. But I'm not gonna lie, I still find this performance entertaining, or at the very least, sympathetic enough because he brings a level of sympathy to the character that we haven't seen before. And we give a backstory about him becoming Robin, which I appreciate that a lot. In this story, we see Dick Grayson being an acrobat alongside his family, which he loses in this film because of Two-Face. Thus, he goes to the Wayne Manor and being adopted by Bruce Wayne and Alfred. And throughout the film, he's just obsessed with getting revenge on Two-Face, which it brings to one of my favorite scenes on the entire film, which is Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson talking about how revenge can change a person, how it basically gives you nothing but hardships, and vengeance becomes part of you and your whole life. And that's something that Bruce doesn't want Dick to go through. And I kind of like that. I like that in this film, Dick Grayson is trying to be active as a guy who wants to do good, or at the very least, that tries to stop crime. Even though he can be a bit of a show off, which I know it's in line with the youth of that time, I feel like at the very least we get a little bit of emotion of Chris O'Donnell. At the very least, that's my opinion. But yeah, I would have loved for more sympathetic moments with Dick Grayson and not just action sequences or acrobatic moments that we see. But hey, Chris O'Donnell performed well, and hey, I feel bad that this actor got the shaft because of this film, or at the very least, because of this reputation as Robin. But hey, he didn't do a bad job as Robin. And I like the costume that he used to wear as an acrobat alongside his family becomes his signature costume as Robin's. So I deeply appreciate that for this film. But now let's talk about the main man himself, Val Kilmer as Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. Now, this might be a hot take, but I believe that Bruce Wayne and Batman, portrayed by Val Kilmer in this, is way better than Michael Keaton. I know, a lot of people like Michael Keaton, and I do like him, but we don't know very much about Michael Keaton. I know that the idea is supposed to be the mystery, that we don't know very much about Batman other than visual cinematic aesthetics. But I don't know. I mean, I would have loved to see more about Bruce Wayne with Michael Keaton, giving a little bit more layers to his vengeance, his mindset, and not always fighting with his fists. Because one of the things that I noticed over the years, especially watching the original Batman, is that he doesn't always resolve his problems or defeat the bad guys with intelligence. It was more with guns blazing and punchy fists. Like he always going and punching the bad guy, or at the very least getting vengeance on the man who killed his parents, which was the Joker, by the way, in that universe. But in this case, when I see Val Kilmer as Batman, I see that he's more meticulous, that he's actually allowing to be more in control of the scenario, that he actually sees the situation and at the same time figures it out how to escape, how to stop the bad guys, which I appreciate that for this film. Because one of the recurring things that Batman has is that he's very skilled in mind, that he's very smart, very intelligent. He can outsmart the villains and not necessarily always using fists in order to stop them, but actually using his mind, his intelligence. And that's why he has been winning a lot of battles. And I feel I get that a lot from Val Kilmer, more so than I got from Michael Keaton. That it doesn't always have like a smart or intelligent mind, that he's always been about fighting, 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 and using his fists. That's just my opinion, of course. You don't have to take it a grain of. You can take it a grain of salt, but you don't have to take it as gospel. This is just what I noticed in both films. And like I said, the Batman Returns didn't give us enough about Bruce Wayne, his mindset, his ideas. Well, not his ideas, more like his experience as Batman, his regrets, his frustrations. You don't see very often about that, and he often feels like a character in the background. In this case, not that much. Val Kilmer puts the focus where it is on Bruce Wayne, what he thinks, his obsession with stopping the bad guys, the fact that he doesn't know how to be Bruce Wayne or Batman at the same time, or having internal struggles, which is what I appreciate from this film. Seeing Bruce Wayne going through internal struggles and finding peace of becoming Batman by choice and not by obligation, which is something that is in the theme of the film. That is not just a random chance of circumstances, that is your choice when you want to become a superhero. In this case, Bruce Wayne choosing to be Batman, not because he has to be, because he believes is the right thing to do. And that's what I appreciate that. And I like that Val Kilmer maintains the control as Bruce Wayne, and that he is not unfazed by danger. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And when he gave to Batman, I really enjoyed it. He really looks like he could put a bit of a fight with Kira from Death Note. So yeah, I like that. Now let's talk about production design and effects. The movie cost $100 million in the US in order to make this film. And I gotta say, the money is shown because the production for Gotham City, the costumes, it all looks very, very outlandish, but also fitting for Joel Schumacher's vision. Now, it's important to mention that the original movies had a more gothic environment, like it was more decay metropolis. And in here it looks more of a bright metropolis at night. You know what I'm saying? Like more Greek structures, more designs that reflect more, almost like a Roman Empire kind of aesthetic, almost looking more like I said, a metropolis that is looking better at day, and at night it looks very colorful and a lot of bright lights. It is very different from the original ones, which was very decayed, very mysterious, but also very theatrical, to say the least. Not that it is, this one is also not theatrical, but you know what I'm saying. It is looking more hopeful in this version than it is in the other ones. The costumes, we all know the costumes with nipples, Batman with nipples, Robin with nipples. It's an aesthetic choice that Joel Schumacher wanted it. I mean, after all, he worked in production design before, so this is probably a deliberate choice for him. Maybe it was a way for him to make it more about Batman being more Bruce's skin than being Bruce Wayne. I don't know. It was a deliberate choice on Joel Schumacher to add it in. As well as added in the suit up sequence, which was honestly, it was hilarious to me, and it was very explicit in those cases. The design of the Batmobile, it looks very more bright lights than the original one, which was all deck in black. Now it has more strengths of light and looks more sharp and like a bullet of sorts. I don't know. It was basically that. The Batwing design I actually like in many respects. The designs on the villains. The Riddler looks like green spandex, which was basically the mask but in reverse. The entire outfit is all green, and his face is the only thing that is in color. Two Face's design, for the other half, it looks very ridiculous, but it's also very, very hilarious at the same time. Not much to say, but yeah, the effects in the production look very, very out there. Well, not out there, very ridiculous to say the least. The movie premiered a long time ago in 1995. In fact, it premiered at the exact year of June 9, 1995, which, or in the very least, in the Man Village Theater. But in the United States, it was released in June 16. So, in many ways, it's been 30 years since that movie came out. A lot of things happened. Joel Schumacher and Val Kilmer sadly passed away in the intervening time, and so we won't be able to celebrate with them this anniversary of this film. So yeah, it's sad, but at the very least, I'm one of those people who actually appreciates this film for what it has. I should also mention before I go to my conclusion the music. The music is very different from the original one. In the first few films, the composing music was made by Danny Elfman, who also was the composer for the original Batman as well as the Spider-Man films, which I highly regard as my favorites. But in this movie, it was made by Elliot Goldenthal, which was the score for this film. And the music, there were a lot of musicians. U2 was there, Method Man, Nick Cave, and so many more. But the one that stands out above everybody else was none other than Seal by performing the song Kiss from a Rose. This is the movie that many people remember, even remembering with this film. And that is because it's a very romantic song. And while the movie itself is not necessarily romantic, it is actually hilarious, but also beautiful to listen to this song and thinking about this film in particular, because it's basically seeing Seal with the bat signal behind him singing a powerful song about Kiss from a Rose is one of the most favorite films of all time. And this song made it possible. So, yeah, kudos for Seal for making such a song like this. The marketing of this film, of course, was much easier for the people in McDonald's since they could release a film such as this one that it didn't rely on that much violence. It was a little bit dark, but not dark enough to say parents were scared of this film. So, yeah. So, kudos on that, parents. I'm sorry, it was just hilarious to see. But yeah, and overall, despite this movie's flaws in story or designs or character, performances, I still love this film. I still think that above all the Batman films that I've seen from this universe, at the very least, is the one that I consider to be the one that I find it more entertaining than others. Sure, it was silly. Sure, it was goofy. Sometimes it tried to balance both the Tim Burton version and the Adam West version. But overall, I have a good time. I enjoyed it a lot. And honestly, it was just fun for me to see. If nothing more than to watch Batman being badass and to see all these performances. I don't know. It's just my opinion that this movie doesn't get a lot of credit that it needs to get. I should also mention that because Batman Forever got trimmed down a little bit, there were a lot of deleted scenes from this film. I heard rumors that there was a plan to release the Schumacher cut, in which he cut a lot of scenes that would allow us to see Batman in his vision about bats, Two-Face escaping from Arkham at the beginning of the film, and so many more things. But honestly, I don't know what happened, but yeah, it got canceled by Warner Brothers, or it was supposed to be released by another person, but then Warner Brothers said that it was illegal, so they sent a cease and desist card, or sorry, a cease and desist letter. So yeah, we will know exactly what was the final vision for Joel Schumacher, but at the same time, I still enjoy this film. And no matter what people say, no matter how many critics come and go, I will always love this film no matter what. So that's my opinion. I don't know about you guys. What do you think about Batman and Robin? Sorry, Batman and Robin, Batman Forever. That will be another review for another time. But what do you guys think about Batman Forever? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you find it somewhere in between? Let me know in the comment section below. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll see you next time. Happy anniversary to Batman Forever. Rest in peace, Joel Schumacher and Val Kilmer. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.